The title was a Psalmody and Cantilena. I hadn't coordinated with His Excellency, the Bishop Sirkazan. When I decided, we were talking with Father Hovan, he asked me, what do you want to talk about? I said, well, I would like that one of the sections of the Armenian hymnal, the one that is overlooked mostly. We do not pay too much attention to it. It's Psalmody and Cantilena. And then Father said, oh, that's great, because Bishop is going to talk about Cantilena and meditation. I said, oh no, now it's getting really tough. So Psalmody and Cantilena, and thank you, Reverend Fathers, for accepting to present the pieces, the examples that we need to concentrate on, because we are dealing with the deepest strata of the Armenian hymnal. This is the very first area where Armenian sacred music began to be developed. Now, so that we can have an overview of where Psalmody and Cantilena fit in the Armenian hymnal sacred music system, I will present briefly, very quickly, I will go through the historical development, and there we will see where we are going to deal with our subject today. The Armenian sacred music starts its existence as Armenian church sacred music in the 5th century. In the between 5th and 7th centuries is the first part is the early period, 407 to 487, where we have the penance cycle by Mesrop Mashdod, the Epiphany and Paschal Triduum, Psalmody, already there, Divine Liturgy. These are the very first sections, 407 to 487, when we start developing the music, the words, the system. Now, all of this is not firmly the very same thing from the first, and it will evolve. But this is where it starts. The core is Psalmody there. Then the Golden Age is 487 to 635, where we have the Dominical feasts added, organized, developed, the Feast of the Blessed Virgin Mary, and Lent. So this takes shape in these years. Look, it's not only 1 or 2 years, it's about 100 more years. The next phase is 7th and 10th centuries, where we have new styles. We feel confident in our musical heritage and production, so we start adding new elements. The treasure and ode emerge in this period. And the kontakion, the Greek form of hymn, appears in Armenia. Domitas Catholicos, when he rebuilt the martyrium of Saint Ripsime and companions, martyrs, he wrote the kontakion. It's the very first proof of the Armenian alphabet, because he chose the Armenian alphabet and he wrote this kontakion, this ode, this paean to Ripsime and her companions in 36 verses. Organization of the common prayer is achieved in this period with Catholicos Hovannes Khosdeghian and Catholicos Nerses the Builder at 662 and Stephanos Bishop of Sunik 736. Now, these Catholicoses, they organized whatever they had subject, whatever they had at hand, and then the next one built upon that. For example, Catholicos Nerses the Builder organized the music, because there was an event where Armenian church bishops and monks and priests were gathered, and they started, of course, the hours, prayers, and one side with the two sides of the chancel they couldn't answer, they couldn't sing the same tunes or continue which the other side started. So Catholicos next says, well, this is like too much of a confusion. I mean, we have so many different melodies, we have to put some order. So started the organization of the Armenian sacred music and normalization, let's say. A lot of treasured melodies were lost because of this process, but it was a necessary process. And then Stephanos, Bishop of Syunik, hardly about 100 years later, they saw the need to reorganize again because the production was so much intense in these years. Now then, we have the 11th to 14th centuries. The Shnorali school. Now the title Shnorali is not only the title of the school. They graduated from the monastery of Garmivan, Red Monastery, on the mountain which is called Sevlerin, Black Mountain. So it's like a red monastery on a black mountain. It's not only the graduate, it has a technical meaning. The Shnorali was a person well versed in music and poetry. So we have Mirza Shnorali is a very well trained and very well accomplished, of course, musician. And he has his classmates. Saki Shnorali, Arsek Shnorali, Dadlo Shnorali. There is a huge production, and it starts branching out. We see the first seeds of what we call the secular music. And this is also a dichotomy that I don't like very much because it is a false dichotomy, because there is always this deep connection of the Armenian music between sacred and non-sacred so-called music. Then succeeds to this period, the exposure to Mongol music. So we are adding one more strata to our musical heritage. After the 13th century, a series of cataclysmic earthquakes happened, just as we saw a couple of years ago, a year and a half ago, in Antioch. Insane sequence, and because of that, hundreds of thousands of Armenians left their cities and migrated to other places. So there was this disintegration. And in this fragmentation and disintegration, there were political turmoil, isolation of monasteries, and the emergence, the consequences of local tradition. And then we have the 15th to 18th centuries, the dark age of Armenian sacred music, where we don't have production. The intent is only to preserve, to keep what we have. And the monasteries, because they go into, they lose contact with the people. So the people develop their own music on their own terms, and in the monasteries we have the continuation of the old tradition passed from one generation to the next. And then the 19th century to 21st century, where the initial years until 1915, the creation of the Armenian notation and collection of hymns. We feel that we are losing something. There is a systematic collection of music. Garamurza, Bishop Servantians, Karekin Servantians, in the poetry, they go out into the people and they start collecting the music. Domidas Arkavet, Garamurza, and Servantian starts the impetus. Mkhitar's fathers in Venice, systematically they collect melodies from all the regions where they were active, and they bring it to the monastery in Venice and teach the next generation to learn those melodies. And then we have the cataclysmic 1915, the First World War, when everything is wiped out. And all the structure that was upholding this system, this tradition, this transfer of tradition and Armenian sacred music is taken off. So what happens? We start carrying it with us, and from, let's say, if I would give a scale from 100, we come down to maybe 5. because that's the only thing we can carry with us with our memory. But because we have the core of this musical tradition, Psalmody and Cantilena, we are now starting to rebuild our ability to think, to feel, and to create with Armenian music, sacred music. Also, hopefully, this will transfer to the Armenian secular music, so that we can, instead of hearing like Turkish sounding, Arabic sounding, Persian sounding, Russian sounding, I don't know, French sounding, whatever sounding music, to see if we can develop and something can emerge with typical Armenian character. Now, there are 1,311 hymns and over 300 songs that make our library of sacred music. This do not include anything that we are going to treat today. That is Psalmody with its variants, the alleluias, and recitation techniques. Now, all of these we have in 6 surviving traditions. We have Echmiadzin, Jerusalem, Istanbul, Paris, Venice, and Vienna. And all these centers, they keep the musical tradition. And if we take into consideration the variants of the hymns, we have more than 7,800 different types of melodies. And how much of this, we're not even counting when we say the festival or ferial, like normal and solemn melodies. How much of these we sing today? This morning, Deacon Ruben was saying, maybe we know 50, 100, 100, 200, let's be generous. But we have more than 7,800 variants, and we need to revive this. And we have this. We do sing this. But they are sung in the monasteries, away from people, in a prayerful. So now you see where the Psalmody, alleluias, and recitation is nested in our system. Why is it important? It is important, Psalmody and Cantilena and alleluias, because these are the elements, the alphabets of our sacred music. Every music has its language, has its alphabet. And what is the alphabet of our Cantilena? And for example, when we take a song, how can we sing it? For example, we start early in the morning, the priest doesn't sing. He says, he cantilenas it. He doesn't sing. He says, and the deacon, the reader, answers what? So, introduces the cantilena. And the priest is not reading. If we pay attention, he's not reading. He's not saying, there yete eshertuna simpanas, peranim yerkeste zoruntunus. He doesn't say it this way. He says, there yete eshertuna simpanas, peranim yerkeste zoruntunus. This is already the start in kernel of Cantilena. And the response is what? Fully developed. The priest repeats exactly the same. What is the answer? Is introducing this double ring of the bell, sets people into the mode of the psalmody. And then the psalm starts. The priest gives the doxology, and as soon as he finishes it, again without reading, it's a very subtle cantilena. And this is not the typical reading of the psalm, because typical reading should be there should be break there. And then Yevpazon Karyan, that's not a typical one. In the night hour, there is a very different psalmody. But this is not recognized as a separate genre or separate type of music. And we just, oh yeah, I know the music. This is how we sing. But it's very important because it's so unique. You do not repeat the same in singing the other songs. This is only the first midnight service that we sing this way. This is another way of singing. It's not the same way that we sing. And then to this, at the end, we hop over because it's a lot of verses here. Usually the priest intonates the last verse. And then if we can intone that, and then follows the Hishestu, another Cantilena. These are not hymns, these are not songs. So if we can please say the priest portion, Yes, and then you continue. And then we continue this pace. Now, do you hear that this is not a sharaga? It is not a song. It is Cantilena and Psalmody. Now, what is the difference between the Cantilena and Psalmody? We will get a little bit later in when we sing the Alleluias and the different types of Psalmody. And the Cantilena continues with the Zartuzel carols, for example, which is a litany. It's a very long litany. And litanies, that is a series of requests. A litany is a series of requests to which the public or those who are present respond with an antiphonal corresponding request. If it is a request, then we say Shnoriade. If it is a remembrance, it says Der Gorna. If it is asking for help, it says Azadia Der Gorna. So it has its nuances, and the listeners have to pay attention to what is being asked in order to be able to answer, to give the correct answer. But the melody or the technique of answering is the same. It's depending on which tradition you are using to answer, or which feast, because we may have these cantilenas give like a little bit of official allure. Now, for example, the normal, we are going to present a little bit of Zartuzials as a litany start with three different normal. Yes, the normal, and then the Jerusalem of Psalm, and then I will give also the Venetian Psalm, just a couple. So listen and compare to this. So the first one is going to be the normal. Yes. Okay. Yes. Now, the solemn one, the Jerusalem style. Yes, now it's, well, it must be that Jerusalem is a very big church, so you need to have the presence. And did you notice the Cantilena and the Psalmody mixed here? And the very stretching, the invitation very loud, and then everybody starts. The whole group starts singing in a low register. That's another technique. There we have only one other sharagan that is reminiscent of this technique of starting the panali, the opening of the sharagan in the normal voice, and then there is only one sharagan that follows the same technique of taking it to the low register and continue walking that there. Now, let me do the Venice is not, the Venetian tradition is a little bit different. The beginning may sound a little bit the same. Armenian and so on. Now you see how different is the invitation of and the response of the group, and this one is totally different type of cantilena and different type of psalmody. Now, to this rich litany, cantilena makes, and a little bit we saw also psalmody in the beginning. Now we go to a more developed, melodically a little bit more developed style or genre, which is the alleluias. What are the Alleluias? It's a ornutune, it's a blessing, which we sing on special feasts, Dominical feasts, or the Blessed Virgin, Zumund. And each one of them has its own selection from the Psalms, and its own also music. Now, we are going to present two different, one the solemn, and the other one the normal Sunday. So,
which one is normal or solemn?
You decide. Which it's easier to start with normal and then yes. Cantilena goes on like this. Now you could sing the entire psalm book, the book of Psalms, with this melody. As long as you keep in mind, which we will come later, the packets of information we have, the musical packets, what are building blocks. Now please pay attention to these building blocks. We will see that these will grow in our tradition to more elaborate musical themes. Is building blocks. Now the solemn one. Look how they develop the solemn one versus the normal, fairy one. How wide it has become, the amplitude. We start with a simple melody and then we build this. And these are not songs, these are sounds. And this is the foundation of the sacred music, which we will develop later on. Now, another further development, methodically, let's go, is talk about, yes. And then we will come last to the, after the takabur, yes, we will come to the gamba, where that's fully developed. you hear like that, those holding notes. Because there we have to connect one building block with the next building block. But there is so many syllables in between. Therefore, the technique is to hold on to the notes, to connect, to bridge one building block with the next one. And therein lies the ability, the learnedness of the performer, of the person who has learned how to cantilena through this. Now, there are, for example, traditions where they hold the note, the same one, the same. They are more self-assured than people that says, okay, let's give a little variance to this. So they go up and down, wavy. Both of them are beautiful. But you have the freedom to develop. And then suddenly somebody says, okay, instead of just holding the note or just doing a variation on the theme, let me develop a full melody. That full melody is developed in our Dharma. But still, we are in Psalmody, but not recitative, not cantilena, but now melodic. Now let's hear the. I suggested two of the most beautiful to my ear, and I'm happy that they agreed too. The Pensa and Kingen, the two typically beautiful melody. The others are not that they are ugly. No. But these ones are typically different from the rest. That's why we would like to present this. Pensa and the Kingen. First we do Pensa, yes. Ending two sections of the verses, it's packed the entire scream of the people, of the Armenian people, for justice. Now, you hear for justice, not human justice. We don't have that. Yes, and righteousness and justice, that is acceptance by the Lord, is to receive his salvation. And this theme, this packet of information has been taken and applied in other hymns, and especially Yekmania, for example, when he took and he developed his Amen Sur, for example, he was inspired by these Alleluia packet of information. Now the again, yes.
Mir mat mersis
these techniques and how can we teach these techniques to the next generation? Because these are important in setting the tone and also the spirituality as well as the cultural knowledge, baggage, let's say, a tradition of how to sing our other hymns in the church. We cannot sing our hymns in Western style. We may use techniques for bel canto techniques on how to produce the voice and how to project those. Yes, those techniques, but not the same way of singing. If we teach our children the technique or this tradition, this music in their ear, we plant this music in their ear of Cantilena and Psalmody, then they will be able to sing much more familiarly, for example, the songs of the hymns of the Armenian church. Now, we can sing this at ease if we know the technique of Psalmody and Cantilena. And the other most important part of the Cantilena is, for example, reading the Interslates. The gospel. We read the gospel. We say chanting, right? We usually say who is going to chant the Bible or chant the gospel today. Or in the recital, the eve of Christmas and eve of Easter, we have some readings. There we read Hovannes, there we read Daniel. How do we read? There is a very important count underneath gracing this. For example, we have the count of, in the Cantilena and Psalmody, we have to count in order to finish, to end the musical sentence, 8 syllables. This is very firm. If somebody is not taught this technique, you have to have those 8 syllables conserved for that packet, ending packet. And then you have to accommodate or organize the bridge connecting the previous 8 syllables. If they don't know this, they will feel unease in trying to understand how to handle a totally new verse. Now for the gospel, it's not 8 syllables, it's only 7. Now why this mathematical requirement? It's very firm. It's a law that does not change this. Now why this? Where this comes from? The 7th syllable, the firm end of the reading, ending the gospel. Now some people have thought, for example, they have said it's 7 because of the 7 graces of the Holy Spirit, because 7 is sacred. It may be. It's a nice, but why the 8 then? I mean, if we have the 7, so there must be a deeper tradition. There must be a deeper echo coming from far more deeper centuries or times. Where are these? Now, yes. Now, the songs, we pass from these 2 songs, but Cantilena songs. It's not like fully fledged songs, but it's a Cantilena style. And those would be like Aravopoulos, Asharam Menaim, and those styles of songs. And these 2, we have probably hundreds of melodies or that people just develop this. And these are all based on the basic rhythm and syllable count. Ashkara menai, aris nayetsial, achtagitz leru. Now if you count Ashkara menai, aris nayetsial, achtagitz leru. If you repeat it again and again, this morning His Excellency was saying you repeat the same thing again in order to go deeper in your heart. When you repeat this rhythm again and again, you find yourself in developing a melody. You find yourself developing a cantilena. And then you develop fully another music. In class at school, at St. Bartan with my kids, I always ask them every week, come with a new melody. For Asharana or Hovannes. Let's take like one sentence, Hovannes. Let's see next week what melody you can come up with. Oh, it's too difficult. It's no, just count the Hovannes. And maybe you can build up this, bring up to a melody, a cantilena. Similar to the when military exercises are done, or labor in the fields. And this is, for example, the Tzikdu, Kashi, Ayez, for example. Why is it that? Tzikdu, Kashi, Ayez, Arao. Because there is work being done. One helps the other, giving the signal, Tzikdu, Kashi. And the same thing happens with the Arabo Luso, or now we're going to watch Ashkaram. Okay.
The one that everyone's used to, or the one, the Jerusalem special?
First the one, and then we do the Jerusalem.
This has two parts, the first half and then the second half is two different.
Yes. second one is more meditative. Tessa, you sit down and you meditate on these 36 verses. We have all the time in the day. The monks, they say that they have nothing, they woke up at the midnight.
This usually takes 40 minutes to.
This
Right.
is what I'm
Yes, 40 minutes. And usually the routine was for them to really physically get up at midnight. And then do this until they would do the office, midnight office, until they brought it to Arevaka. So it's not that they dragged it, they waited for the rise of them. Now, why this? Now, why? For example, there are so many, I'm not asking why as a stubborn question, no? Because you can ask why in a stupid way. So say somebody says do this, and then they say, wow. Not in that sense, in an inquisitive sense of asking why. Where it comes, for example, the custom of having two sides. There are so many cultural connections, but we are in the presence of the judge. Therefore, people have thought, oh, there is the officials that told the king there is an accused person. That's it. And this accused person has done good things and bad things. So there is one side reminding the king the good deeds of the person. The other side reminds the king the evil things that person did. And the king decides which one has more weight. And if you go like 3,500 years ago in Egyptian, the Book of the Dead, for example, there you see balance, the weighing. There is a heart, human heart, and on the other side, there is a feather. Which one is going to win? So the feather is divine justice. And look how thousands of years ago people thought that even the smallest favor, divine favor, weighs much more, has much more weight than an evil heart, let's say. So this forces us, pushes us to think through. And in order to ponder this, we accompany with music. We develop with music. Now, what questions arise in your minds? I hope not difficult questions. We will try to answer as much as we can. I know. Yes?
Two questions. One, if we look at the Oracles, nothing's directed. Is it that we just know on certain feast days this is the certain melody to sing? Is there any place where this is dictated, not just oral tradition? Is there some place where this is written down so we know?
Well, if you go to the monasteries, yes.
The monasteries. Okay.
The casa that tells you what to do.
But it seems like we have been victims to oral tradition. And
Yes.
then at some point that gets cut throughout our history. What are we doing today? Nachas, or the Mojan, what are we doing to read? What's happening in the monasteries to ensure that this, whatever notation we decide, is being preserved so it can be studied for generations to come?
Yes, it is being done. A lot of transcription work is not new. For example, transcriptions systems have started in 1860s. With actively transcribing, but it's an enormous task because technology changes and Western musical tradition enters. It's difficult to fit this free-flowing music into that. So there were a lot of technical issues to be resolved. Then, for example, some people thought, okay, in the Eastern tradition there is the quarter note instead of the full notes and half notes in the Western system, but that's not being Because, for example, and transcriptions have been fully done in Jerusalem, and I know they have been done in Echmiadzin, and they have been done since 1930s methodically, finished by the 1960s in Venice. They're all transcribed in Western musical notation. The problem is when people take those notations today and they sing, I do not recognize the melody. Because I heard it from 1968 to 1983, and I do not recognize the performance, in that performance, the melody, the way it is sung. The notes are all correct. Yes. Now, in my experience, my personal experience, for example, I left Venice in 1983. Fast forward 2020, a priest from Venice, a new student whom I didn't know, I met him in Armenia. And they were doing the office. And then they asked me, okay, can you sing the Lenten service, the Sırpuri Marlam, the melody. I sang it, it's from memory. And then the two priests said, we want you to record this for us. Because we sing the same thing, but it doesn't sound the same. Now, it's only 20 years. Even if we transcribe everything, I said, recording is more helpful in this case. But that's very difficult. And for example, in Venice, we have recordings of Domitas. We have recordings on wax, which you cannot play very much, and you have to conserve it very accurately. Then, but they have been recorded, played and recorded. But other than that, we do not have. We have to have schools. That is where morning, noon, evening, we perform this. And young kids enter and they are versed in this. They know it's implanted in their ears. You hear them humming in the streets. If you go in Jerusalem, you hear in the complex, monastic complex, you hear students humming. They hum the melodies that they hear in church. That's the learning process. That's where you mature, you develop the skills to read the notes. Like here, transcription systems, you see, different ways.
Yes, I mean, and I know I'm in a different situation. I live here. I've been a deacon for 30 years. But where do I get that tradition? Where do I hear that when it's at best on a Saturday if I'm in Armenian school, or a Sunday during,
Maybe we have to organize, a Sacred Music Council can organize like a week of retreat or something where we can sing together. That would give more of a field, right? To get together and to sing.
How do we make a system out of this?
How can we make a system? I think
we have to do system, but it's
we have to do it 4 times a year, right?
Or maybe we can share whatever we have with other people in our diocese.
Record on YouTube.
Yes.
Yes.
But not everything is notated, so we have some.
Yes, not everything is notated. You're right. The majority of this, for example, the Cantilena, it's not notated. You learn, and even if you transcribe the notation, it's so difficult to read the note. Yes. For example, why do we say why do we sing it this way? It's a happy tune. Why do we put the several notes on one syllable and the others are monosyllabic? Why? Because the foundation of it is Yerketek yar yerno. Ornetek is yerketek. Yeritzi anudiano. Vormya inzasla. Vormya Now, when you start cantilenating like this, the sounds, yes, but why do we put several notes on Vornya and not on Vornya? Why don't we sing that way? Because the foundation of it is that when we speak, we say Vornya instead. So that brings that phonetic systems here. These are not notes, these are how to read the text, where to put the proper accent. There's a verb, command form, therefore you put an accent, and then when you transfer that to Cantilena, you develop the melody on that syllable, not on the next. Now, the same thing here. These are very similar to Armenian notes, neumes. And look what Guido d'Arezzo did. He took the 4 lines, applied to the notation, and then said, okay, you go up and down. Now, these intervals, how do we define? On which music theory it is defined? Yesterday, driving here, we were talking in the car with my wife and my son. Is it a Pythagorean system of intervals and harmony? Or is there any other system? In my studying it on personal, it's just singing the melodies again and again. I think, for example, I will try this theory that we have 8, possibly 12 different harmony systems, which is the modes, but each one of them has its own harmony rules. How do we find these relations? First, we have to find first the scale. What is the scale that defines Kimza? What are the notes that you say? When you hear Kimza, you recognize it right away. What are the notes? And for example, here we have, look at the scale. The red lines show the interval, and the arrow underneath is the final note. All Aitza Sharadas end on that note. Why this regularity? Why don't they end on another note? Like the first player, again, and so. You see how they are changing the ranges. So even visually, look how they shift. This is Kimza. Third player, Kingen. Yes. Again, and solo, look how wide it becomes. There is a lot to investigate. Thank you. Any other questions, please?
Thank you.